has campaigned for youth to at least begin to take considerable quota in the sum of political offices, if not take over the ruling architecture of the country from the prevailing domination of the current political juggernaut. The tone of attention to the youth has been largely borne by what is perceived as the disappointment and perceived failure of the dominating political class to take over the country through the trajectory of growth, to take the country through the trajectory of growth and development over the years. The question of youth participation, however, appears to be broadening in its various wings of perception in the context of the most resounding affairs within Nigeria's political climate. How prepared are the youth to take back their country in 2023? Young politicians and the CEO of Skylar Incorporative, Ahmed Buhari, joins us in the studio. He is also the vice presidential candidate of the African Democratic Congress, ADC. It's a pleasure to have you join us in the studio.
Thank you for having me.
And he's joined by Sama'ila Musa, the Director of Strategic Communication and the Coalition for Northern Group. He tells me before this program there are over 50 of them in the coalition. It's a pleasure to have you join us in the studio.
Thank you for having me.
I've had cause to interview other political actors in polity who had made one or two appearances here, especially young people. And I kept telling them that, why do you always come here as spokesperson to this aged generation? It would be nice to see your faces on the ballot. It sort of speaks to me rather than come to defend people in an age bracket. You can't imagine what it takes to be there. But that, I'm sure that will be a conversation for another day. Starting with you, we have seen the clamor, especially by the youth, and rightly so, because they form the bulk of the numbers that we have that will be participating in the next election. But you are a vice presidential candidate. Are you satisfied with the role that the youth is playing? Is it just enough to just be the ones making the noise on, well, if that is a noise, on the social media? Or you think that we have come to that point where there is a real handing over of the baton from the old brigade to people in your bracket?
Thank you for having me. First of all, I think it's important for young people to understand that nobody's going to give you power. We would have to go seek for it and we have to grab it. But I think what is paramount is for young people in themselves to start restructuring their thought processes. Restructuring their thought processes to understand that indeed they can do better. When young people like myself present ourselves to say, oh, we're running for office, a lot of young people see it as alien. How can you do this when you're supposed to be supporting an older man and they let him pave the way for you? So what we have consistently done as young people is to support older people, not to liberate ourselves, but to oppress ourselves. You see other young people who do not want to see other young people prosper. And when you sit around older people, what they tell you is, don't worry, you need all the experience in the world before you can actually do the right things. And when you look back in their history, you find out that they've actually been in the position of authority for about 40 years. And then you start to think, at what point are you saying this young person should wait? And you said, and at the end of the day, when you look at many young people and what we have, decided to get into, I'll give you an example. People will say, oh, as a young person, you cannot win an election because you do not have the money. These older guys do not have all the money as well. But because they understand the need for them to remain relevant, they come together, put their resources together, support one of their own, and make sure it gets into office. When you come back to young people, what you see us do on Friday nights, we go to clubs. You see people spend 100 million naira per night just for drinks and girls. These are resources that you can actually channel to see how you can protect the things that you keep complaining about. As I speak with you right now, there are meetings every night where you find people 60 years and above sitting down to discuss how they can retain power. Look for young people. We are trying to fill forms to see how we can leave the country. JAPA seems to be the most important thing. And at the end of the day, how do you want to change all of those things that you've been complaining about if you're not going to be part of the process that will see it happen? I contested for office in 2019. When I made a declaration to run in 2016, a lot of young people were like, he's lost his mind, he's gone crazy. But you see, I'm excited to be doing what I'm doing because if not anything else, older people or people who eventually manipulate their ways to get into a position of authority would have had one or two things that make sense that they can use to act only so that the country can work. Because at the end of the day, if everything is working right, trust me, many of us will not even bother, going through the rigorous processes of election, knowing fully well that some elements have been put in place to ensure that you fail. But whatever the case is, we will still sacrifice our time, our energy, our resources in trying to see how we can talk to the consciousness of young people, only so that they can dissociate themselves from the quagmire they have fixed themselves in as a result of their inability to think out of the box.
All right, Sumaila, let me throw this question to you. He seemed to have laid everything on the feet of the youth. We're not doing what we're supposed to do. We're not putting our resources where we're supposed to put them, and the rest. But some people actually believe that these old guys that we're talking about really have not done much in sort of paving the way for the young guys to come in and take over and do something worthwhile, that they are not really providing the mentorship that is required. Just like you pointed out, you'll have somebody being in the position of power and be in a position of leadership 40, 50 years, and he's still trying to contest, still trying to hold on to that. You understand? While you have other people coming in, and he has not done much in empowering these young men to actually come on and take over the mantle. Do you subscribe to that school of thought as well?
Yeah, well, it's two-dimensional. It's two-dimensional in the sense that they haven't done nothing, actually, in trying to pave way for the younger generation to take over power. Second is, mentally, the young ones are also not prepared. When you look at it psychologically, you know that these people are just not prepared for.
So maybe it's because of the generational subjugation that they have already, so they're just used to it.
Well, you see, it's a generational decay, kind of. So it keeps permeating even the yet unborn generations. Like, it's something you inherit, So once you're growing up with that kind of mentality, it's psychologically, it's kind of demeaning. It's what warps your psyche in such a way that you're really not thinking what you should be thinking at the right time, because you're always feeling it's not yet time. And then when you look at this generation, it's a generation really, sometimes you will want to feel sorry for them. Feel sorry, first and foremost, in the sense that at 35, some guys are still in their parents' houses. It's still not yet on his feet to want to sort out rent on his own, or he's never done anything of himself. You understand? I mean, let's even look at, maybe you got into school early, but of course there's ASU strike. Except if you're privileged to have gone outside the shores of this country to study. So you perhaps will be getting it at the right time. You should be getting it. But when someone is already falsifying his age to go for youth service, because 30 is actually the benchmark, so you already know there's a problem. So at what stage does he come out of youth service and started scouting for jobs? And then they're telling you these days that not older than 23 for some of the jobs, especially in multinationals, or whatever, any jobs that is actually well paid, max 25, or shown 7 years of such experience. How is it? Are we talking about a movie or in reality? Because these are things that are actually not obtainable in our society. So mentally, and that's why sometimes when you see people in their droves jetting out of this country, you cannot blame them 100%. It's not everyone who has that resilience, who has that kind of drive to say, come what may, we're going to fight it through, and we're going to until we get it right. It's not everybody who has the opportunity. Some people don't even have the parents to even stay in their homes at 35. You understand? So different folks with, different strokes per time, and then everybody's struggling. But you see, a whole is this. The way forward for Nigerian youth is that, like he rightly mentioned, power is not given, you have to grab it. And then you have to grab it in a way that actually is making sense. What is the time right now in the world? It's not just because the world does not revolve around Nigeria. Rather, Nigeria should be striving to catch up with the rest of the world because we're far left behind. So what is the time right now around the world? What are the things that are obtainable? What are the things that people are actually striving to become as a nation, as a people, not being stuck in this mentality? Because if at this stage we're still stuck in an era, where we're supposed to be making advancement, we're still stuck about, where does he come from? What is his religion? you know. And you see, that's why some of these things are quite painful for quite a lot of us, because when you go to China, the total population of Christians and Muslims in the whole of China is not up to 5% of the population, and yet they keep making giant strides every time. So how do you want to break out of this cocoon that you find yourself, because you're still debating about religion and ethnicity while the rest of the world is already talking about something else? So maybe it's going to take us about another 10, 20 years to get out of this mess. Then we now begin to want to catch up with when our contemporaries around the world have gotten to 30 years ago, you know. So really, it's a hell lot of trouble for Nigerian youths over time. And then the elderly ones, a lot of the times, like I mentioned, that is two-dimensional, because mentally, when you doesn't pose yourself to be really ready to actually grab power, is that they also keep feeling like these kids, and we keep displaying that every time. Let's take, for instance, this tolerance we're talking about. If you want to know how divided is Nigeria, just go on social media. We can be laughing at each other, but once anybody makes anything, it makes a statement on social media, where he comes from will determine the kind of responses you get underneath. Some people actually want to just discard the message itself, but rather the messenger will be an issue of attack. And then these same guys who we are blaming never had that during their own this youthful age. You know, Nigeria was so united, but not now. So it's really a hell lot of trouble before Nigeria.
With you, Samaila. Listening to you, I get the sense that you have a lot of pity when you see people your generation display some of the kind of attitudes they display. They kind of, you get the sense that they are trapped in a box of with certain what would you call it? Mentality. But how do we begin to reconcile some of the sharp contrasts that we see in our systems? The private sector, with the progress they have made, have been driven lately by the youth. Check out all the bank CEOs. I mean, 2/3 of them are in that age bracket, driving conglomerates in a country as dysfunctional as Nigeria, where there is no power and all of that. A lot of the innovations we are seeing in fintechs are happening by this same youth. So there is actually a functional part of their brain that they are applying to making money or doing other things. It does appear that when it comes to governance, they sort of switch off. Because it's the same intellect that you need them, and the same managerial capacity that you need them to bring to public service, you need them to bring into governance. How do we begin to transition people who think like that and make all that progress in spite of what the country throws at them, to bring them into the space where we really need them to drive innovations and drive the initiatives that would make us begin to move in the directions that what is stopping that migration, that transition from happening?
Okay, so you see, the problem is not really about the brains of the Nigerian youths. I mean, brilliant chaps, tops all over the world in various fields, you know, and let's talk about the evil. They're talking about the Yahoo, the scams. Nigerian chaps still topping because they are gifted. They have the brains. In whatever field, whatever thing they decide to want to go, with that passion, with that energy, they always thrive. But the problem actually is that, you see, there's a psyche, there's a mentality that, like, when your brain is, you got your brain woven around some kind of psyche, you feel there are limitations. You're free to exercise this, your acumen in this direction, but not in this direction. You understand? So when you are coming into governance, and already there are barriers, because what we learned over time is that there are power brokers in Nigeria. I mean, this happened all over the world. You understand? If you can't amount to nothing except you're this, you're that, when it comes to governance or in government. But if you want to be a businessman, the sky is your limit. But if you don't have a godfather, then that's not happening if it's in politics. You understand? And that's why quite a number of them who are actually doing well are doing that because there are no time wasters in the terrain they have delved into. There are time wasters in politics. You need to serve some certain level, I mean, some certain individuals to a certain level before you can come to this. Because if you're talking about the children of nobodies who are actually doing well in politics, they've actually been at the corridor of power for some times, just doing, yes, sir, do you need water? Do you need this and that? If they're not doing it directly, they're doing that indirectly. You understand? So until you're able to break that barrier, nothing is going to happen in politics. If you don't have a godfather, then your father is somebody in the society. And that's why a lot of guys who actually, like, as if they landed on the spring and then they got, catapulted, is because someone has actually laid some background for them politically somewhere. Other than that, it's not happening. You see, the Nigerian politics has been so monetized. It is so monetized that if you don't have money, the only thing that can make you make name is that you're a thug.
But Samaila, and this question goes to Buhari. It's when we hear this whole question of monetization, is it a question of us not really looking at the numbers? Is it a question of us not really understanding the advantages that we have? Because I hear that kind of conversation even with the women. They come out and say, no, they are not allowing us play space. And I said to them, do you know that the ace lies with you? Do you know the amount, the numbers that you have that go to the poll? Have you tried just walking around your numbers alone and changing the narrative? Do we understand the advantages that we have when it comes to the numbers that are available to vote? In trying to respond to the issues raised by Samaila.
Absolutely, you just hit the nail on the head. Unfortunately, like I started my conversation, we have boxed ourselves believing that we're supposed to be where we've been asked to stay. I'm going to paint a scenario, but let me respond to Samaila first. Not everybody in politics that has been successful politically has got a godfather pushing him or her. Indeed, the only reason why young people are where they are right now is because of our inability to organize, understand our strength, and use it judiciously. I did speak about in my opening statement about when you go to the clubs on Fridays, what you see young people intend to spend their money on, what you see young people make as priority, even just meetings. When I was younger, my father, his friends, and uncles, they always had these weekly meetings. Those meetings were for them to organize and understand where they want to be in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, and they've achieved. And some of them will tell you today that I am here because I fought the Civil War. This is a Civil War that didn't have a reason to happen in the first place. But they tell you, we fought in the Civil War, we kept this country together, we deserve to still be here, even if we're 85 years old. Now, this is the problem. So for many young people, they keep telling us those stories, and they will not say, it's true, we need to be here. So we are actually agreeing to wait for them to die, even though there is a system that says you can only serve in the civil service for 35 years, or at the age of 60, you retire. Now, generally, when it comes to the political space, there is no cap. They just want to stay there because they feel they have given something to the country. But again, exactly. But again, for many people who think young people do not have anything to offer, I like the fact that you brought up the private sector. The private sector is successful. And for every politician who is doing well, when you listen to him or he's having some great ideas, go look at his team. There are a bunch of young people who are trying to make him excel. But unfortunately for these young people, they've also reduced themselves to believing that this is what I can just do. I can't do more than this. So again, I like the fact that he spoke about the Yahoo boys, and it's in the news now, and their belief that whatever it is that they're doing is justifiable because after all, we're not touching Nigeria's money. We're looking for money somewhere else around the world. I believe that we don't have a system that is communicating effectively with the people, which is why when you ask that first question again about the older generation, or when he said, am I just blaming young people? No, I'm not just blaming young people. I'm also blaming the older generation. It's a two-way thing. I believe that mentorship is the missing link here. Nobody is mentoring anybody. If you look at people in their 70s and 80s, they tell you, Sadona did this, Tafa Balewa was this. He came to my class when I was in primary, and from 5, he pushed me into the army. No, he asked me to be a businessman. And all of these stories are the stories that make them still committed to the fact that those founding fathers, paved their ways through success for them. Now, what are you doing to pass that kind of knowledge, inspiration to the next generation? Nothing is happening of that sort. And that is why, for them, we're just lucky that some of their kids are not, as good as we are, and that is the only reason why we are not seeing them in the space. Otherwise, it would have been a total mess. Would have been forgotten completely. But again, I'm imploring young people like ourselves to say, you know what, regardless of what your story is, I lost my father when I was 13. I was raised by a single mother who was 6. I know the struggle we went through. So for many people, hey, you are crossing your line.
That's right.
Stay where the system wants you to stay. And I'm saying, no, I'm not going to let that happen. And so slowly but surely, it's about making a lot of young people realize that indeed the strength lies with us. I know a lot of young people who make at least 50 to 100 million naira monthly, who do not see the need to actually pick one chap who is smart with great ideas and sponsor him for councillorship. But rather, they will put those monies together and look for the two big ones and say, you know what, look, I know it's going to be either APC or PDP, so I'm going to give 500 million to APC and 500 million to PDP, and whoever wins, I'm still in the system. So we have mastered the act of ensuring that we support them only so that we can remain down. It's unfortunate.
It is.
All right. Well, we're still staying with you now. Being someone who's in active politics, because we're not only just talking about participation here, because if you're talking about participation, youth have been participating in politics for all the wrong reasons, all right? When you talk about thuggery, when you talk about ballot boxes being snatched and all that, it's always the youth that you attribute to that. But active participation, going for elective offices and the rest of it. Some of the old guard that we're talking about now, some of them pointed the finger at the youth by saying that you don't want to put in work. You want to come in and you find somebody that's registered into a political party last month. This month, he is saying he wants to run for governor or he wants to be a senator. You understand? You're not putting in the work. You don't want to go start from the grassroots, build yourself up within the ranks, and then until you get there. How true is this?
This is the narrative they keep passing, yeah? And they say all of those things because they want other young people to point you out as the outcast, as the prodigal son, as the one who's not agreeing to follow process. But indeed, politics is what? It's just a contest. So if indeed he came in just yesterday and he wants to contest and you feel like, oh, we can beat him because we've been here, by all means, go into contest with him. Do not discredit him because he came in yesterday. We know how the race works. Even if you put people to run 100 meters, there's some people who will start yesterday, and there's some people who will start tomorrow and still finish the race first. Like some people say, because you got here first doesn't mean that you're going to finish first before me. It's just how the life is. But again, these are the things, these are the narratives that they push so that young people will look at other young people like, hey, wait in line. There's a queue. But indeed, there is no queue. Because as I speak with you right now, if Kwankwaso in NNPP leaves NNPP today and say, I'm going to PDP, everybody say, yes, let him be president. We don't mind. If as I'm talking to you right now, Bukola Saraki, who's in PDP, moves to APC tomorrow and say he wants to be president, oh yes, we support it. But they do not see, that because they feel those are the people that have earned it in the minds that they have created for us. So again, it's a conscious effort that we would have to make and say, you know what? Where are the rules to what you are saying? But I understand the generation, I understand our predicaments. I understand that when you look at our fathers who were born in the 30s and 40s, indeed what they actually achieved was that they went to school, they made their decisions without anybody telling them what to do. When they were going to primary school, they just came back and their mothers prayed for them. Their fathers were in the farms. They just came back and said, we're going to secondary school, whatever that meant. Go back and come back safely. And then the next day, oh, I've been sent to Stanford in the UK. I'm going to be a military officer. To Lebarasa, I wish you all the best. That was what happened to them. Then when they started having us, from day one, they told you you're going to be an engineer, you're going to be a pilot, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be this. And they sort of created a pathway for us. And as I speak with you right now, every single decision that we would have to make, we would have to go back and ask them if we should or we shouldn't. Which is why, for many young people, we're unable to make decisions on our own without consulting them. And for them, they look at it and say, if I allow him do this and allow the other one do that, in another 10 years, they're going to drown me. Or my child is still growing, so I cannot let them do that, because if I let them do that, my child will come and he will not have the space that I'm hoping for him to get. So this is a huge problem with our generation. And that is why slowly, I hope it doesn't happen, but we might be the forgotten generation.
Coming to you, Samaila, I would like your closing thoughts on this. Listening to Buhari, you get a sense that there is indeed a missing link, and that's one of mentoring. My question really is, if the old guys who don't want to leave will not provide the mentoring, We have to get it somehow anyways. What are you doing? Because I'm saying this because you represent a coalition. That means you are harnessing pockets of energies here and there. What are you doing to provide some kind of alternative for that mentoring that is required? Mentoring in this sense is everybody understanding what direction we should be moving and keeping our eyes on the bigger balls and providing for ourselves the transition that is necessary to move away from where that mentality is prominent to a place where we can begin to say this country is our business, as he said in the Animal Farm, this land is ours to plow and not to plunder, and if we have to plow, this is what we need to do. These are the set of tools that will be useful for us to successfully plow. Is that the kind of thing that your coalition is looking at? Or is it just a question of coming together and saying, oh, let us come together so that we have the numbers to back and shout when they shout at us?
Okay, you see, let me start with the issue of the mentoring. It's not as if there's no mentoring at all. Okay. It's about misplacement of priorities when it comes to mentoring. The person who is trying to mentor you, who was his own mentor, that was a generation that never had any mentor. A lot of them, like he rightly pointed out, went to school, their parents were in the farms. Is it the farmer that is going to mentor a child who can read and write about education? Do you understand? So they actually, because it was a system that just brought them up, okay, now everybody needs to get educated, even at 15, some of them went back to start standard 1. There was no any mentoring of sorts. But it was a generation, I'm trying to drive somewhere. Yeah. It was a generation that almost started everything by itself. Like, okay, you're the first doctor in this family. You're the first to go to school in this family. You understand? So, like, he was just a self-made mentor to himself, rather. You understand? So he was just learning. Now, why I say it's mentoring gone wrong is because, okay, they feel, okay, no, sometimes you want to pass down the mistakes you made during your time because there was nobody to mentor you. You don't want your child to repeat that. Sometimes you want to caution the child, like, oh, I've seen it all. I've gone this path, and I know you're going to get your fingers burned. But you see, again, there's another problem. You try to mentor someone who his own generation is now. It has to be right now and right here. I don't have time for all this. You spend 30 years to do it. I don't have that time. I want to make it like yesterday. So it becomes more difficult trying to mentor somebody who is not patient, who want to feel the shortcut is the best way in life. So you're going to have problems trying to mentor that kind of person because all you're saying is just saying, look, I'm listening to you because I'm still under your roof. You understand? If I have my way today, I won't be here listening to all this trash you're talking about because some of my mates are already made already. It's a generation that you see young kids at 100 level, 200 level are already going into money rituals. What mentoring do you want to offer to such individuals? It's a shortcut kind of generation where nobody is even want to listen to any form of mentoring. Some of these old folks, yeah, they have their own issues and all of that, but it's not as if 100% you're going to discard everything they're trying to do or trying to say. Because honestly, even within young people today, you have one of the greatest challenge is doing business. Okay. Between a young man, and you feel you can go to bed with your 2 eyes closed, you're going to be betrayed.
Yes, so Samaila, my director tells me we're running out of time. In 30 seconds, what are you doing with your coalition to change the narrative?
Okay, so what we're trying to do at the level of the coalition is to keep sensitizing and reorientating the Nigerian youths and making them ever conscious that if there's any time for you to take over the mantle of leadership, it's now. As a matter of fact, like, we were mentored by Metama Usule. In fact, the coalition itself was kind of metamorphosed through some of the ideas he gave us from the ACAC, that's the Arewa Citizen Action for Change. He told us during their time, the kind of things they went through, how some things were bad and all of that, how they needed to correct them, how they couldn't even get some of these things registered and all of that. And so many things we got from that at his feet. We also tried to pass down to say, look, if there's any time, this was a man who became a minister of petroleum, the first minister of petroleum in Nigeria at the age of 27. You understand? But such opportunities are more or less not there anymore today.
All right. Well, I'll have to get Barry's final thoughts on this as well, please, as quickly as possible.
So as quickly as possible. So for mentorship here, it's not like there's not been no mentorship from older people. There's been some mentorship here and there, but it's not adequate. And for the older ones, they did get mentorship. And you see, why things are changing now is because we believe that mentorship should be gotten directly from a particular person. No, in those days, the society completely mentored you. Whether it's the Islamic school you went to or an elder in the society, just somebody will talk to you about direction. But I think the biggest problem is that for any generation that is not prepared to transfer the responsibilities from one generation to the next generation at the right time, a vacuum will be created. And when this vacuum is created, all of the mess you see happening here right now will continue happening. You know, and then that is why we keep going on and looking for a solution. But the real problem is the passing of the baton that has not happened.
All right, passing of the baton. We hope to see that happen sooner rather than later. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the show this morning, and we really appreciate your perspectives on youth participation when it comes to politics. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, this is where we'll draw the curtain on this discussion at this moment. We'll take a short break, and when we return, the show continues. Still stay with us.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dsspr@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
Welcome back to Daybreak on Trust Television. If you're just joining us, we have been looking at issues around youth participation in politics, and now we are moving on to something completely different, and it has to do with the cover story today on the front page of Daily Trust as it borders on plots, taking in plots to replace the INEC chairman 4 months to the 2023 election. The coalition of United Political Parties, CUPP, have raised alarm over an alleged plot to remove the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, in a bid to compromise the 2023 general election. The national spokesperson of the opposition coalition, Ikenga Ugochinyere, made the allegations at a news conference in Abuja, where he said the coalition had also uncovered fresh plots to deactivate the bimodal voter accreditation system, BVAS, from being used in the election.
The chairman of Nigerian political parties, opposition coalition CUPP, and heads of political associations have intercepted intelligence of an alleged fresh plot against the 2023 general election, and this time being coordinated by leading figures of the ruling APC governors, led by a Southeast APC governor with controversial past, and another from the Northwest, who are working with their colleagues to perfect a plot to intimidate INEC leadership into abandoning the use of electronic transmission and upload of election results to the INEC server, deactivation of the BVAS machine from INEC server, and the creation of crisis of confidence based on trump-up charges that will lead to the removal of top officials of the Electoral Commission, including the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud, and other national commissioners who are insisting on the use of BVAS for the 2023 election and the irreversible use of electronic transmission of results. This latest intelligence and shocking information involve the use of security agencies, the APC-controlled Senate, and the courts to cause a leadership crisis and change that will see to the removal of the Commission top leadership led by Professor Mahmoud and the appointment of a pushover and compromised acting chairman who will ruin the credibility of the 2023 election by deactivating the BVAS machine from the INEC server. Stop the use of electronic transmission of results and also ensure that the Commission's resident electoral commissioners nominated by APC governors are quickly approved and deployed to states where they will be of assistance to the ruling party at the expense of credible, free and fair election.
Meanwhile, the APC debunked CUPP's claims of mounting pressure on INEC to deactivate the BVAS or cause the chairman of the commission to resign, fielding questions from journalists in Abuja after a tripartite meeting of the National Working Committee of the party. Spokesperson for APC Presidential Campaign Council, Festus Keyamo, said the allegations are unfounded. Today, the Daily Trust lead story centers around the same conversation about the plot to remove the INEC chairman. And we are now being joined via Zoom by Abdulaziz, the Deputy General Editor of the Daily Trust, to throw a bit more light on this story. Good morning, Abdulaziz.
Good morning. So it's good to have me on the show.
Thank you. Suddenly, we got this story of yours, alleging plots to remove the INEC chairman, a story that reminds us of a similar incident in 2014, ahead of the 2014-2015 elections, where a similar thing was said about Professor Jega. How much do you know about this plot?
Well, this is something that has been on for a while from the sources that we went to in the week or a couple of weeks. And it is an issue which has components. Of course, at the center of it is politicians who are, as usual, leave anything to chances, who that their positions are, or that their interests prevail during the upcoming election. And there are things. One is that they are trying to see the International Electoral Commission stop the use of the BVAS machine, which is the bimodal voter accreditation system. Only, provide accreditation of voters. And then secondly is the issue of electronic transmission of results. That is, the INEC has a system of transmitting election result live and also complementing that with that is called election result viewing platform. There is what is called IREV, where everybody who registered can actually be in. And then lastly, which is number 3, to allocate the return of the incidence form previously we used in the previous elections. If you can't get accredited by the card reader, if you remember 2019 election, then one will then fill the incidence form that one is on the voters register, but that the machine, that is the smart card, could not recognize the person. So we know that has been phased out by INEC, and then there is this alleged pressure to return of that incidence form. So these are like basically the issues. Then of course there are the aspects of people who are not comfortable with the INEC chairman. As you said, this is also familiar as it has happened before. So there are allegations that, oh, you don't want to. So it is a conglomeration, it's a coming together of all these points is giving rise to these plots and the agitation to have either push for this or at the last ditch solution to have the man kick out of his position to replace him with a person. And this has happened in 2015, and also in this INEC chairman, before his tenure he was renewed, according to the story, there were through the issue of election, which are now being revived. Right now, there is a court case in Owerri. They used the 2019 election.
All right, so Abdulaziz, we have heard the reaction from the APC, and because they are also involved in all the allegations that were actually bandied about. What about INEC? Is there any reaction from them? Has INEC actually come up with a statement or anything like that?
So INEC has not reached out to them or this our story. The INEC National Commissioner for Voter Education, Barrister Festus Okoye, responded by saying that the INEC is only going to the law, Electoral Act 2, the far-reaching actions that firm up the integrity of the election. So saying that it cannot be intimidated to decision the use of the beavers or to return to the and they are saying basically that the incidents, beavers, the use of beavers have come to stay. We can't on that. And of course, the issue of the pressure over, they've not responded to that, whether the really under pressure to jettison the use of beavers or to do certain things to favor some politicians. We've not they have not specific to talk about insistence that the beavers has come. It's like they are saying that not work on the commission.
Thank you very much for those insights concerning the plot to remove the INEC chairman and replace him on the eve of the election. Thank you very much for that perspective as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, and that's how we're going to wrap it up on this on Daybreak this morning. Hope you had an enjoyable time right here as we did bringing it to you. I am Ibrahim Yusuf. Let's do it all again tomorrow.
Interesting conversation it was today. If you had missed out on anything, you can recourse to our social media handle on Twitter, YouTube, to catch up on all that have been said or that has been discussed on the course of the show today. See you again tomorrow. I am Sunday Michael Ogo.